and they ended up canceling the game. So we only had one half of basketball, and it was a cool half. But unfortunately, and Montreal was doing well too. But yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get to see the second half. So yeah, that was my Sunday night.
All right, welcome back to the latest episode of Game Day Glare. I'm Lance. I'm with E. This is the podcast for sports videographers. How you doing, E?
Good, yourself?
Yeah, pretty good. Been busy, and you've been pretty busy. You had an interesting day yesterday. Do you want to share your day yesterday?
Yes. Well, that's pretty much what inspired this episode, because I was filming at a historical event here in Canada, which was the first professional basketball game played outdoors at a venue that is usually a tennis stadium. But because it was like a big thing, there was a lot of media interest, which normally there isn't that much with Canadian basketball in Montreal. But then that day there was, so I didn't have court access, so I was filming from around the venue, pretty much anywhere but on the floor. So I thought it would be a good idea to talk about how we can film sporting events when we don't have access to the actual court or the actual field, because that I know that's the case for a lot of parents, for example, filming from the stands, whether they don't have access or they just want to sit with their families. Just like, how can you film from the stands and still make a great video? And also a lot of people who film like high school sports and college, and like, they can get into the venue with a camera, but they can't necessarily have like accreditations and things like that to get those close-ups from up close. So yeah, we can talk about all that stuff. But yeah, regarding yesterday, it was cool because yeah, it was like a cool venue, a cool sort of background with the open. I think it was called like Basketball Under the Stars or something like that. So definitely trying to make the most of that. But yeah, it's been if you're listening to this from Montreal, you know that it's been raining for the past like what 2-3 weeks, something like that.
2 weeks minimum. Like every day it rains. For
Yeah.
some reason, it rains.
Yeah, it's been pretty shit. And the game was actually supposed to be on the Friday. They postponed it last night, which was Sunday, 2 days later, because it was raining Friday. And yesterday it was looking good in the morning. Then it started raining, I think around 2-3 p.m. for like just a little, like 20-30 minutes. And then it was cloudy, and the weather app was saying that it was going to be cloudy for the rest of the night. But when I got there, it was like actually the sun was coming out. It was super nice, blue sky. Like, we're all good, which we were. But at about halftime, they started like trying to. They had the towels and trying to like they were trying to dry off the court, but which was weird because we didn't really understand what was going on. We thought it was just like patches that were wet for some reason, but because we weren't wet at all. It wasn't raining. It wasn't. There was no. It wasn't like there was like haze or anything like that. It was everything looked normal from our perspective, like in the stands. But I think condensation started setting in once the night, when the sun went down and it got a little bit colder, and on the floor, on the I'm assuming it was getting very slippery. So they tried to get rid of it, but it kept showing up, and then they ended up canceling the game. So we only had one half of basketball, and it was a cool half, but unfortunately, and Montreal was doing well too. But yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get to see the second half. So yeah, that was my Sunday night. What about you?
Well, my Sunday night was not as interesting as yours, but I mean that's too bad, right? Because it's a great idea to have this game outside under the stars, but yeah, you can't control the weather, and you can't control especially like condensation on the floor. I mean, it's a minor detail that you probably overlook. The game was probably supposed to start earlier, then it got pushed back, and all of a sudden that condensation is in the way. But I mean, it probably would have happened Friday night anyway, depending on how the temperature goes, because if they didn't calculate that in.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not sure how they. Yeah, I don't know how that works, but it's a shame because yeah, I feel bad for for the team, because I'm sure they got insurance, but like, because they're probably gonna have to, like, we're not talking about big budget sports here, like, so, and they were organized, like, I was impressed with the media room. Like, it was very, like, they had, it's stupid, but like they had food for people, like everything, and it's not every sport that goes, that extra, um for to accommodate everyone. So like they were really doing it like very professionally, and putting the money to make a big thing out of it. And yeah, I'm assuming they're gonna have to reimburse everyone. So yeah, it's just a shame. I just feel bad for them.
But it is a pro venue, right? Like, because that's where the venue is, where they have pro tennis. Yeah. So whenever they have, what's it called now? The Canadian Open or Rogers Open, or they change the name all the time. But I've gone there actually. One of the first things I ever saw there at Jerry Park was Agassi versus this young kid at the time called Roger Federer. And Federer beat Agassi, and it was a big upset. And this kid came out of nowhere. And then now you look, and everyone knows who Roger Federer is. And he had a lot better career than Andre Agassi. But at the time, Agassi was this big superstar, So anyway, that's a little backstory to when I was at Jerry Park. But
That's actually, that's fun you bring that up, because I was going to say that is telling of how old you are, which is a great segue. It's saying happy birthday, by the way, because your birthday was a few days ago, and
appreciate it, buddy. Yeah,
the 1 year can celebrate with you in the comments.
That's it, 1 year older. But E's got a birthday coming up too this week. So the reason I remember my wife's birthday is because E's birthday is the day before hers. So it's very, very simple. Once I wish E happy birthday, it means I run out and get my wife a birthday present.
Yeah, exactly.
It all works out. All right, let's get back to this show. So E, you're just talking about this great experience, but why don't you bring people in to tell them, like, how did you get access to this event first, before we start talking about the challenges of, filming from the stands and storytelling and all that? So why don't you explain what it was like for you? Because sometimes you're working with the venue, sometimes you're working for the team. This one, you told me you weren't. So why don't you explain how you even got access to this, and then your shock when you found out you didn't have court access?
Well, shock is a very strong word, but
I'm trying to build it up here. I'm trying to, give the viewers a little
devastated. I broke a glass, and
that's it.
No. Well, yeah. Sometimes, yeah, I do a bit of everything. Sometimes I work for teams or leagues, but this time it was just an opportunity because it was an outdoors game, and it was going to be a nice setup, and I thought it would be a cool thing to be a part of, and might as well make the most of it and try to come up with an idea for my YouTube channel for a video. And so I applied, like, because we both know that the people who run sort of the entertainment side of things, like the game management, the game presentation side of things. So I reached out to them, but then I realized, like, I've worked with the Alliance in the past. Like, I'm just adding a layer of middle people, like, in the conversation. So I told Christine, like, I was like, you know what, like, let me just contact them directly. That way it'll be easier for me and for you. She's like, yeah, you're right. But I contacted the Alliance, and yeah, they were happy to have me, but they said because it is a big event, there's a lot of media interested, so they probably won't be able to get me court access, which I was fine with, because I was going there for the backdrop, the big guy. So I was going there for wide shots, and making sure we can see the unusual setup and not just focus on close-up action. But the reason they like me and they were happy to have me is because, and I've mentioned this before on the show, I'm sure, that, like, usually when I get in touch with a team like that for the first time, I tell them what I do, and I tell them I'd like to go to their game and film for my YouTube channel, but I'm more than happy to share my footage with them. So usually after the game, like, I'll put together, like, all my best shots, and I'll just put them on a sequence, which helps me after that. When I edit my videos, I can just pick from that sequence, but that sequence I'll export, and I'll send them a video that's like a melt of all my my best shots. So because they appreciate me doing that and they use the footage, they're more than happy to have me back when I ask. So that's kind of the relationship that I have with that particular team, and that I have with a few other teams here in Montreal. So that's how I get easy access. And for people at home thinking of doing the same, like, I think it's a combination of, being, not doing it for the money, just doing it for access, but also making good enough content so that it's an added value for them to have access to your footage. Because, like, I do that for a university as well in Montreal, who's more than happy to have, like, when the games, because they have some games televised, some not. So when the games are not televised, like, they're more than happy. They're a university, they're a school, so they're more inclined to help younger sports videographers who are trying to learn and build a portfolio. So they're more than happy to have kids come in and try to film. But a lot of these kids, they're just starting, so they have like a budget camera with like a 50 mil lens, or like a 16 to 50, and they're trying to film a football game. So, like, the footage that they produce is not that great. It's so, in comparison to what they already produce themselves, like, they're not going to use that footage. But if I come along and I've got the proper equipment and I know how to use it, I've got the experience, then they're more than happy to have me at any game, because they know they'll use the footage. So it's everybody wins, basically. I get what I want, they get what they want. Nobody has to pay any money for anyone or anything. And but I do it for access for my YouTube channel. I don't do it for money. But I do get hired sometimes by those same teams when they need, like, specifically like a videographer to do a full-time job for them. So it sometimes I do get paid, but not when I just show up to events like that. So all that to say that, that was the case last night. So I didn't have court access, but I did get to pretty much go anywhere other than, well, I didn't try to go on the floor without necessarily getting on the court. Like, I wasn't sure if my accreditation allowed me to, but I figured, because I was trying to make a video about exactly that, which is why I told you it would be a good idea to talk about it today. So I thought, like, if I go on the floor and I'm like, 3 feet away from the court, it kind of defeats the purpose of the point that I'm trying to make. So I stayed away from the floor. I don't know if I had enough time in just one half of basketball to film enough good content to make a YouTube video about it. Like, I'll have to go through the footage today or tomorrow to make a final decision. But yeah, that was the idea. So it wasn't a shock to get in, because I've done it before. But I'm always very grateful and humble when I get access to events like this, just because I sent an email to a guy and then come in, and I know it's not everybody that can have that, but for other people who trying to get there, I'd say just keep filming, high school and things that you do have access to, and get better. And then eventually, by sending some of your footage to those bigger clubs and offering them to film there for free, and for them to use your footage, eventually someone will say yes when your footage is worth it, basically.
Well, let's just clear up something. You didn't go by the floor because you didn't want to help dry it. Okay. Because I saw a clip and there was like 70 people on that floor with towels and blowers and fans, and they were trying everything. So I know you. You just stood back there and you were like, I'm not going down there because they're going to put me to work. I'm here for free anyway. So it would have been free labor. But going back to what you said, it's a perfect way to network what you did. You're offering them a free cameraman. You're giving them your melt. They've had a couple times now to see your work, so they know they can trust you. They've hired you through it. So it's all about networking. It's all about making those connections, and it's about putting yourself out there. And you're getting rewarded by getting the access, and it's benefiting both of you. It's benefiting your YouTube channel with, like, especially yesterday was a cool idea, an outdoor basketball game. Like, you don't really see that a lot on Instagram or even YouTube. And for them, they're like, hey, we got extra footage in case we miss something. Hopefully this guy can cover it. So it's a win-win, and it's great that you reached out, and it's good to have those connections. And the only way you get those connections is by reaching out, guys. So don't be afraid to send an email or make a call. Worst case scenario, You even have to buy a ticket and you bring your camera and you sit in a seat and you start producing a little bit of content and you show them what you can do. There, the only way that you're going to be able to get into these events is if you get in front of these people and show them your work. So at first, you have to do it for free, or maybe you have to buy a ticket or whatever it is to get access to the venue. But eventually, if you can get your footage in front of the right people, the doors will open for you.
And I feel like there's two types of like sporting organizations, like just to side subject for a second. It's like there's the ones they're the ones who are like happy to have cameras there because probably they don't get a lot of media attention. So the more cameras there, the better. Because first of all, if someone misses something, another camera will pick it up. Will have it. So you're gonna have a shot of everything. And second of all, like, yeah, it's free publicity. The more cameras there, I mean, the more people are posting on Instagram, the more people are talking about it and showing it, and so that the rest of the world can look and say, "Oh, that was cool. Like, we should go next week," that sort of thing. Where other organizations, the more old school ones, are so afraid of that stuff. They're like, "No, we need control. We need to sort of control every image that comes out, and if it's not us, it shouldn't go out because, we didn't give permission, blah, blah, blah." And that to me is a very, old school, dead way of looking at things. It shouldn't, like, people who think that because they control the amount of cameras, it limits, like, this, everybody's got a phone, everybody's got a good camera on their phone. So whether it's, Joe Blow in the stands filming with his camera, or a 20-year-old guy with a mirrorless camera 3 rows in front of him, like, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So you might as well let the guy with the good camera shoot something cool, because he's going to post it on Instagram and promote it and create sort of more visibility for your team, rather than just trying to control everything and a lot less. There are some teams in Montreal I'm not going to go into, but like that we don't see much because, yeah, they don't give other people access, and like, and it doesn't help. Like, I don't see how that's a good thing. But anyway, it's just, yeah.
No, but getting back to that, like the 4 major sports, like the NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, and all that, NFL, it's going to be harder to get in there. But that's when it's perfect for a university, or like this is Canadian Basketball League. This is who you reach out to. These are the people that will say yes. Because so I'll take the NHL for example. They don't have, first of all, they get tons and tons of requests. They already have media deals, so they can only invite their media or their media partners to these games. And there's no room. Not everyone can get down low, or you can't go, like, we have broadcast positions, you have other positions. Once those positions are full, they're full. There's no like real like roaming around position and stuff like that you could really, really do with get credentials, because they'll have their own in-house videographers doing it. So it's really, really tough to target those major sports. And yes, of course, everybody wants to film the NFL or NBA because that's what you think is cool. But if you're filming a high-end college game, it's just as good. It's just as good. Or even if you're filming like a minor team, it's fine. You know what? Because the angles are there, your creativity is there. You can get some really, really good shots, and you can make these non-pros look like pros with your footage. So that's who you reach out to at first, because the big guys will say no until you get affiliated, until you get in with somebody who can get you the proper credentials. It's going to be really, really hard to get in there. Yeah. All right. So now, let's talk about some gear. So you go to this event yesterday. Unfortunately, no courtside. I know you had a little tear rolling down your cheek when you found out you didn't have that little blue or green all access. So what's your game plan? You going with what lenses you bring in, and what's your train of thought on how you're going to tell your story from far?
Well, in this particular case, because this setting was so nice, I wanted to, and to be honest, I would have done it anyway. Like, if as long as there's like a big crowd, I definitely want some wide shots. Like, I want some wider shots where you can see like the crowd in the background when someone scores like a 3 points or a dunk or something like spectacular that's gonna get the crowd excited. So I definitely, my goal, and this is what I was doing until I wasn't, was to sort of go between like my wide lens and my close up. So I had like a 16-35 and I had a 70-200. So using the 16 to 35 to get like great wider shots. So I went like upstairs to get like a bird's eye view of the crowd with the court in the middle, try to get a bit of the sky as well. And also like just in this, I also used it sort of in the lower ball. I would try to do a few like tracking like motion shots, and or like just starting low from behind like the last row of the basically the first section of seats. I would be like behind the last row and just going up, so that way like you're sort of at the fan level, and then you just go up, and then it reveals the court. um Things like that I like to do with the wider camera. Obviously, if I was on the court, then I would definitely use that on the baseline. But I think even basically what I'm getting at is that when you're further away, it doesn't mean that you always need to go with the telephoto lens to just focus on the action itself. And even if it's not like a crazy outdoors event like I was at, like I think having the fans in your shot really adds a lot of makes your shots way more dynamic, and you see that fan reaction, and it gets you into it, gets you excited. It's always cool to get like fan reactions to something cool. So if you can get sort of the action behind and then some fans out of focus sort of in the foreground or the other way around, it's always a great shot. And also because it's a bit of a wider shot, then you catch everything. It's a lot easier than to afterwards to make like a vertical video, for example. And also when it's wider like that, like you can do a little push in post, you can track, you can move around, you've got a bit more wiggle room to do those sort of things. So I definitely like to use that. But then again, yeah, you mix it up, and then I put on my 70 to 200, and then I try to get, especially if I can, like last night, like there was a lot of people, but it wasn't sold out by any means. So there were like little sections, like little patches where there was no one sitting there. So I would try to I would sit down somewhere where like there's no one obviously next to me, but more importantly, like the two rows in front of me, there's no one sort of in my spot. So I don't get like someone's like the top of the head in my shot. So I would sit down there and use my 70 to 200 and get some close up action that way. And it's cool because it's like a perspective that's a bit different. Sometimes I'm in the corner, sometimes I'm on the side, sometimes I'm behind the basket, so I can play around with it, move from one seat to another, and use the long lens to get some close ups. So I was trying to going from one to the other, which is the only reason why I didn't bring a gimbal, because otherwise I would have definitely used the gimbal with the wider lens to try to create some movement. And I did try to do some movements without it, but with the gimbal would have been even better. But because I knew I was always going to go back and forth between the two lenses, I felt like with the gimbal it would just be way too complicated. So I decided to go without it. But yeah, that was my plan. I haven't looked at the footage, so I can't tell how well executed that plan was. But I think it was going well. I just don't know if I have enough of it.
All right, so I got a couple of questions for you. First of all, your camera movement, if you're using the wide angle lens, you should be fine then. You don't have to worry because you're already wide, so you know you're stable. Now, you only went with one camera and two lenses, or did you use your second camera?
One camera, two lenses. Because I think if I was to bring the gimbal, that would be I could put the wide on the gimbal and then have a second camera with the 70 to 200. But it's just walking around in the stadium with two cameras and the gimbal becomes a bit messy.
Well, that's what I want to get your mind thought, your thought process. So like, I have two cameras, and there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, I'm going to bring both cameras because it's going to be easier. I can have the wide on one and 28 to 75 or 70 to 200 on the other. But people don't realize the second you have two cameras, it's not easy to have two cameras on you. So why did you decide I'm only going to go with one camera? And have you ever gone with two cameras? And when you go with two cameras, like what's your setup?
Well, when I do bring two cameras, usually it's to film myself filming the game for my YouTube video. It's not necessarily to have two cameras filming the action. But yeah, for me, it's just a matter of like being flexible and making it as convenient as possible to get nice shots. Because just switching from one lens to the other, it's like, oh, do I want to do it now? Like there's something happening now that I should get a close up shot of, but I'm on my wide right now, and then if I want to switch lenses, it's not like I've got space. Like I'm in the stands, I'm like all, and the floor is a bit wet because it was raining earlier. I don't want anything to touch the floor, so it's a bit, yeah. So you're like, well, you don't do it as much. So in that sense, actually having the two cameras already mounted with the proper lens would be easier. But then, yeah, carrying everything through the crowd, people bumping into you, all that sort of stuff. I try to, have a light sort of kit, but yeah, the idea is to keep it easy, easy to get around, to be convenient, to be easy to get the shots that you need. Like it was fun to just oh yeah, I want to go upstairs, let's go upstairs. I want to go downstairs, let's go downstairs. I want to move around, I want to sit there, I can sit there. Like if you have a tripod, for example, that's way more complicated. And yeah, if you have like a big backpack, because that's happened to me sometimes. Like I would have like a small sort of travel tripod, like a photography tripod that would be like hanging on the side of my backpack, but then it gets in the way sometimes, and you're bumping into people, and it's just like, yeah, I don't want it to get to that stage. So I try to keep it light. That was the
It's ideal though to be light. Like obviously, maybe a little monopod can definitely help you out in those situations, just to be a little bit more stable. But even that, right? Handheld is probably the best way to go in a situation like that, especially because now, you're not courtside. So you're going to be moving around, because if you stay in the stands in the same spot, it's going to be a pretty boring video. So you already know that you're going there and you're moving around tons. So you got to pack as light as possible. Now, I've tried it before where I have one camera mounted on my neck, like hanging with the strings. And I have another one in my hands and I'll switch in between. But then it's like I almost need two hanging from my neck, because when you put one up, you got to put the other one down, and it's hard. It's really hard to manage two cameras when you're one person, and you don't know the struggles. It sounds like a really good plan. And even changing your lenses, the second you change that lens, you kind of like are like, I'm keeping this lens on for a while. You don't want to get going back and forth. So you kind of adapt to what's happening. Like, okay, yes, this is a great basket here. I have my wide on right now. Well, I'm going to capture the atmosphere. I'm not focusing on that actual basket. I'm focusing on the crowd. I'm focusing on what's happening around me. So you really have to make that conscious decision. So now that you go there, you have your two lenses, you have your one camera. What's your storytelling challenges? Like, how are you, focusing on emotion? How are you trying to portray this event from the stands?
Well, like I said, like having the crowd in your shots is very helpful. So like when you're on the wide, try to get them, in the foreground, out of focus, or at least in the background somehow. But yeah, I try to do that, but also sometimes I just focus on the crowd entirely, not necessarily during, well, obviously after a play, if I can see like a section going wild because it's kids or it's behind the basket and they have all these foamy things for free throws, like I'll pan quickly towards them to get like a reaction shot. But at professional events, which also, and now you see that also at like the college level and stuff, like there's a lot of activations during timeouts and breaks and sorry. So during those activations, like if they're the cheerleaders, for example, are throwing t-shirts in the crowd, then obviously you'll get people in the crowd going nuts. And so film those people, film like close-ups of them getting excited. And or if there's a big screen, I guarantee you, like these days, every time a kid sees me with my camera, they assume that they're going to end up on the big screen. So they're looking at me, they're dancing, they're all excited. And then the disappointment comes when I stop filming and just walk away, and they
Oh,
never showed
I'm
up on
just
the
on
screen.
YouTube. Hey?
Yeah, but yeah, so I'll make the most of those moments to use those crowd shots as cutaways. But otherwise, yeah, it's filling up your frame basically. It's all about composition. So you're further away, so you got to make that extra space around, like the action's in the middle, but there's all that extra space around it. So like, how do you make that interesting? So it's about filming from a point of view that, like, you don't want to have like a I don't know, some sort of equipment. Like sometimes, because in the corners there would be like light stands and things like that, or speakers. Like that doesn't look good at all if it's in your shot. So, but if it's a fan or some thing that's like some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like it'll be like team logos. I'll be all dressed up for, and it kind of looks cool. Like something like that in the foreground with the game in the background. That's awesome. So that's yeah, you're trying to fill up your frame to make it look more interesting. And but then again, like I said, you also go with for close-ups, and even in the close-ups, like a lot of times some fans would show up in the foreground. um what's cool about this 70 to 200 is that there's a switch where you can you either focus entire range, well, as close as the minimal focus range is, but it's either the entire range of your focal length that can be in focus, or you can set it to like 3 meters to infinity, which is basically whatever is like 3 meters away or less, the lens will never try to focus on it. So that way, when people walk in front of your camera, they stay out of focus. The fact is, the focus doesn't change. So that's good for that situation where you're in the stands, you're filming the action, and then there's people like walking up and down the stairs in the stands or things like that. So sometimes like there's people just quickly going through your frame, but it doesn't affect the focus. So it just adds a bit of texture, a bit of like something happening in the foreground, and it just makes it more real, more dynamic. It's actually, if the person was to stay there, it would be annoying, but them just quickly going through, I kind of like it. And or sometimes just me moving the camera to follow the action, and then the basket goes in and I get someone in the foreground sort of whoop, popping up and then clapping. They're out of focus. They're blocking half my shot, but they kind of make sense at the same time. So I like it. For me, that works. You know, it just adds, it tells the story without me having to make any effort. It just happens organically.
At this event, there's a story within the story, right? Like the event itself, the venue itself is the story. The whole point is like showing the atmosphere, showing the venue, showing that it's an outdoor game and that. So how much of that did you capture also of the actual, like, court, venue, establishing shots and all that? Was that part of your game plan, or were you more focused on your YouTube video of how you want to show what it's like shooting from the stands? Or did you really emphasize like, hey, this is a cool one-time outdoor game, like this is what I want to focus on?
Well, I show it a little bit. Like I'm trying to show, like I said, when I'm filming wide, I'm trying to show the sky and the lights and all that stuff because it's there and it's pretty, and like it goes back to like me trying to make the best composition possible, but it's not, I'm not making a video about the architecture of the stadium. So I'm using it as a backdrop as much as I can, as much as it makes sense, but I'm not pushing it that much, to be honest.
You know what would be perfect for your video? A drone shot. A drone
Yeah.
shotty.
Well, I'm sure
Actually, was there a lot of drones flying around in that? Did they have? They must have had, obviously, or you didn't notice.
Well, I don't know. I didn't notice, but to be honest, if you're at the top, if you go at the top of the last section up there, and you're filming downwards, like you pretty much see everything. Like it's not. I don't think you're missing out. Like it would be a cool shot to just have like a drone sort of passing by, but I don't know how legal how that works with legal insurance and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not sure. I didn't see one personally. There's a lot of planes passing by as well, so I'm not too sure. Yeah, they're obviously way higher than what the drones would be, but yeah, you can see a lot of planes flying by, so maybe it's an issue.
So now you got to go through all this footage, and there was no end of the game.
No.
Right. So like you're missing all those key moments at the end of the game when when a game ends and the crowd's cheering and the players are reacting to the victory and all that. So in your edit, are you thinking you're gonna put the weather as an element in it? Like, I mean, obviously you film them cleaning up the floor. You must have some weather shots and that. How are you gonna tackle this edit now, considering like it's a unique experience for you? Like I've never been to an event where it got called halfway through. I've been at a baseball game where we lost power and we have to wait 4 hours for the power to come back on and we continue the game. But for this is a unique situation, I'm sure, for yourself too. So now what is the game plan? Because this is something unexpected. So you go in with a plan and you're like, I'm going to get all these shots. And, you get to halftime and you assume you have a second half to capture whatever else you missed. So now what's going through your mind? Because this never happened to me. So I want to see what you thought is after this game is like, oh shoot, what am I going to do now? Or do you feel like the first half you captured enough to kind of tell part of your story?
Pretty much everything you just said, to be honest. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, that's like it happened. And I was like, oh, yeah, that kind of messes up my plans. So I'll have to go into the edit and look at it and see if it's worth doing the video. And if it is, then I'll probably mention that because it's a big part of the story and it's a funny ending. And it explains as well why I don't have that much footage and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, will it be worth it? Will it be, um, how am I going to do it? No idea, to be honest, right now. But yeah, if I do make the video, I'll definitely gonna include it somehow. That's for sure. But yeah, it was unusual. It was different. It was funny. I don't know. Well, funny.
Did you have any rain gear with you? Like, do you have a rain
No,
protector
it
for your
wasn't
camera?
raining.
No, but did you, like,
But
knowing the forecast, did you plan ahead in case it rained, or was
no,
it
not
like
at all, because I knew that if it was raining, the game wasn't gonna continue. So there was no point in bringing rain gear because if it's raining, it's over. So there's no. I didn't even bring a jacket. Like I just figured if it's raining, I'm out. That's it. So I didn't bring anything from that perspective, which yeah made total sense. Still does. It just I didn't think about the condensation, which probably a lot of other people didn't, because even in the stands we had no idea what was going on until it was really really obvious. But at first we just thought like a few patches on the court were wet, and they kept going on with towels. So you're thinking that, and it became weird when they're always trying to dry the same spots. I'm like, well, obviously, if you've been there before and now it's wet again, like
it's an issue?
it's not going away. It's
Yeah.
a permanent, well, not permanent, but like, yeah, it's a bigger issue than just wiping the court. So, which is obviously was, and which is why they canceled the rest of the game. But yeah, I just think like for people who are at, because I don't want people to think that like, oh yeah, it's it's a big event, so of course you're filming from the stands and it's easy because there's a big backdrop and there's this and there's that. Like it's the video that I want to make is not necessarily about that. It's more about proving the point that you don't need to be up close to make a great video. So it's more about shooting through the fence or through a different perspective or having other things in your background to fill up the frame and make that part of your story and make that video interesting that way. Like that's kind of the idea that I was going for, to prove that point, to show that even from further away, first of all, with a long lens you can still get great shots of the action if you position yourself properly, but also make the most of being wide. Even if you don't have a long lens, you can still make it interesting, and there's ways to do that. So that was more what I was going for, to be honest, more than just showing the stars and the nice backdrop.
What you said there is so true. You can make a killer video even if you're not courtside, but you have to plan. You have to have an idea of story. Either it's you want to tell it from, like I said, the venue aspect, or this great atmosphere, or you want to tell it from a fan's point of view and show what it's like when you sit in the bleachers or when you're not so close to the action. Because some of the nicest shots I find in highlight videos or hype videos are when you see the action happening from far and you see the whole crowd jump up because you feel like you're in that scene. You feel like you're with that crowd. So, and it's good practice. It's good practice because you don't always need that highlight bucket or that highlight play to make a great video. And this is a great example and a great, way to experience that and to try something new and get out of your comfort zone. Because when you go to a sporting event, you automatically think the best video is going to be as close as I can to the action. But doing it like this, it puts you out of your comfort zone and makes you, try new things and makes you grow. So I think it's a pretty cool thing that you do it. And it was kind of neat that it was an outdoor game. Just too bad that the weather did not cooperate. I mean, maybe if you would have helped dry that little patch one third or fourth time, maybe they could have, continued with the game, but you didn't help. So
Exactly. But the other thing I wanted to mention as well is that, like, if you are stuck in a position where you can't really move around that much and you end up with a lot of the same footage, the way around that, well, not around that, but the way to sort of uh, make that edit feel a bit more dynamic is to film a lot of like cutaway action. So trying to get, you know, shots of the billboard, shots of the fans, shot of the benches, shot of, like, you know, just different things. Like for me, for example, like I said, there was planes flying by, and so I did capture a couple of times, like just a I just locked into the sky and had that shot of the plane going from one side of the frame to the other, just to, you know, make the most of the fact that it's an outdoors game. So you see the game going outdoors, and then you get a cutaway to like a plane passing by, and then you go back to the game, like things like that. So if you're, you know, if you're in a nice southern city where there's like palm trees or things like that, maybe you get a shot of like the wing going through the leaves, like just like little shots like birds or whatever, like just something that just, you know, you can cut away to not just have that same shot like with jump cuts one after the other, because that's also the downfall of people who do get court access, is that like you're sitting down on the baseline filming a basketball game, for example, and you're just shooting from that angle all game, but then when it comes to the edit, you only have one angle. So how do you make it more interesting? Or maybe when during timeouts you get shots of the crowd, you get, you know, and you try to film other things around you, even if you're still sitting at your same position, you film as many other things as you can, so that between those different action shots, you can use these shots to sort of mix it up and add variety.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I mean, it was definitely interesting.
At the very least, at least we got a podcast episode out of it. So.
That's it. That's it. It was one extra podcast out of it. But I guess that's it for this episode of Game Day Glare. Thanks, guys.